She was 34, raising a 16-month-old son on her own when a near-fatal car accident changed her life in ways she never imagined. The crash severed her spine and left her paralyzed, but it didn't change her determination to be a strong, loving parent. Marjorie Aunos is now an advocate for parents with disabilities, or as she prefers to say, different abilities. And as we approach Canada's week of accessibility and the Global Day of Parents, she is here with us now to share her story. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really...
So first of all, tell us briefly about the day of the accident. Take us back.
So it was a Thursday morning, and I was, I had spent about a week with my family up north, and my son was there, and my sister and brother and so forth. And I was just going to work. My son was staying with my parents at the cottage, and I was on that road, and my car hit black ice, really, and it was just really poor timing because as my car started to sway, there was a pickup truck right up ahead and a car behind. So the impact was inevitable, and that's what happened.
So tell us about the immediate aftermath.
Right. As soon as I saw the pickup truck and I knew something really bad would happen, I thought actually that I was going to die. But I lost consciousness. And when I woke up in the car, I couldn't feel or move anything below my neck, actually. And then I prayed to have my arms back because I felt that if I had my arms, I could raise my son because I could hug him. I could hold him. So I knew right away that I was paraplegic or that something of that sort had happened.
So you spent a month in hospital, 5 months at a readaptation center, and then you went home. You had help from your parents. But how challenging was it for you and your son Thomas to adjust to your new reality?
It was, oh my God. For me, it was a big challenge because I was the go-getter, type A personality. And now all of a sudden it was slowed down. So everything was slowed down. But I had a 2-year-old at that time. And as you know, 2-year-olds are 2 years old. So they like to hide behind the table so that I can't get and pick him up. And they like to nag us a little bit that way. So that was a big challenge. And that was a challenge because for 6 months he had been raised by my parents. So he was relating to them more than me at the beginning. So we had to sort of reshuffle the whole thing. And, he had to learn also that, mama was back home, and that meant that he needed to listen to mama and not, Mammy and Pappy so much.
Okay, and as time went on, as your son grew older, how did your disability affect his character? Would you say it's made him more patient, more empathetic? What have you noticed?
Yes. Well, the first thing is that he's able to notice what's not accessible. So he knows, the cracks of the sidewalks. He knows when there's a slope, on the sidewalk. He knows about the grass that's hard for me to go on, or the fact that I can't be, in the sandbox with him. So he knows all of this, but he also is very innovative and creative. And, I remember one story where he had met one of my friends who's quadriplegic. My son, I still needed to cut his food. And he saw my friend who his wife was cutting his food for him. And he said, I'm going to invent this thing, and he'll be able to cut his food on his own because that's important, Mama.
Wow. So definitely a sense of empathy there. What kinds of stereotypes or discrimination do parents with disabilities face?
Well, I think it's really hard for people to imagine that parenting is done differently sometimes. So there's, a lot of discrimination that can happen. I'm not saying that everybody sort of view us as, sort of a beast or anything like that, but there is clear discrimination. And when we look at research, we're overrepresented, for example, in child welfare. So obviously there's something there in terms of changing stigma. And our event next week on Tuesday is really meant to sort of showcase the positive side of parenting differently, so that people don't just have sort of that negative side.
Tell us more about the event. Yes, you're going to be speaking, sharing your story. What exactly is that, just briefly before we wrap up?
Great. So the event is part of Speaker Slam, which is an inspirational speaking competition usually. This time around, it won't be a competition format. We're going to be 10 parents with different disabilities. And also, we looked at diversity. That was important for us as well. And so each of us will have 2 to 3 minutes to tell about one story about the joy of parenthood. And so it's really meant to focus on the positive stories and also the stories that I'm pretty sure every parent will be able to relate to. And I think that's the biggest message, actually.
Okay. Well, thank you again for your time today. Parenting, mothering, it's not easy, and your story and what you continue to do is an inspiration.
Thank you so much.